Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at Say Ooh
A book on their behalf.
in English.
Right. Thanks for that.
Hmm.
Alongside that, we've got a really interesting collection of images
Yeah.
that listeners have shared with us. And it seems like there's a lot of interest in
Yeah.
really understanding, those folks who feel like they're not being heard.
That's valid.
So we'll keep that in mind as we kind of work through all this. What do you say we jump right in?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, even just looking at the title, right? On their behalf,
Right.
already tells us we're dealing with perspectives that, maybe don't always get the attention they deserve.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take long for the book to just dive right into that feeling.
Right. Yeah.
There's this really powerful passage early on that compares the impact of societal change, all this change happening around us, to being caught in a whirlwind. Like you're being swept up in something you don't fully understand or control.
Yeah, that's a powerful analogy. Yeah, it really is. Does that resonate with you at all?
I mean, it's so relatable, right? And the book goes on to explore how this feeling of being swept up can lead to this real sense of not belonging. Even a fear of losing your identity.
Yeah.
Amid all the change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about feeling lost, though. It's about feeling silenced.
Yes.
There's this one line that really stuck with me. It says, "Our voices are drowned out, not by shouts, but by the deafening silence of indifference."
Wow.
It just perfectly
Right.
captures that frustration of having your perspective ignored.
We're dismissed, yeah.
Yeah, completely. And what's interesting is how the book connects that feeling of being silenced to the rise of technology. You'd think social media would be a great tool
You would, yeah.
for making your voice heard, but
Yeah.
the book makes the argument that it can actually have the opposite effect.
It's almost like we're all retreating into these echo chambers.
Right.
Just hearing what we already agree with.
Exactly. Yeah. Does the book offer any solutions to that? Like, how do we break out of that?
Well, it's not about easy fixes, but it does really emphasize the importance of actively seeking out different perspectives. Stepping outside our comfort zone.
Right.
And really engaging with ideas that challenge our assumptions.
So instead of just scrolling through our social media feeds,
Yeah.
we should be out there, like, actively looking for information that broadens our understanding.
Exactly. Being more intentional about how we consume information and who we're listening to.
That's so interesting. As you were describing that, it reminded me of some of the images
Oh, yeah.
that folks sent in. There's one in particular. It shows a single figure standing in this vast empty landscape. It really captures that feeling of isolation
Yeah.
the book talks about.
It's like a visual representation of being lost
Yeah.
and unheard.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about this sense of feeling unheard, but the book doesn't just dwell on the negative. It explores ways individuals can cope with this sense of displacement.
Yeah.
One thing it focuses on is the role of art and creative expression. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the book presents it as this double-edged sword.
Oh.
On one hand, art can be this incredible outlet for processing emotions and finding your voice when you feel silenced.
Right.
But then on the other hand, sometimes creating art feels like you're shouting into the void,
Right.
like no one's really listening.
That's such a tough tension, right?
Absolutely.
Creating something beautiful and meaningful, but not knowing if it'll ever connect with anyone.
Totally. But even then, the book suggests there's power in the act of creation itself.
How so?
It argues that even if it feels futile, creating art can be a form of rebellion. It's like saying, I will not be silenced. I will continue to express myself.
So it's about finding agency and asserting your identity through creativity, even when the world isn't paying attention.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that act of creation, it can also be a way of connecting with others who share those experiences.
Thinking about art as a way of connecting makes me think about that image of the hands reaching out. They're not quite touching, but they're reaching almost like a metaphor.
It is, yeah.
For that desire for connection.
It highlights something the book explores in more depth. This search for identity in a world that's constantly changing.
Right.
How do we hold on to tradition while embracing change?
Yeah.
How do we stay true to ourselves while adapting to a new world.
Yeah, it's a tension that feels really relevant today, right?
Totally.
The world is evolving so fast. It's easy to feel like you're getting left behind.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the book, it doesn't say it's about choosing one or the other.
No.
It's about finding a way to weave them together, you know?
Like a tapestry.
Exactly. The threads of the past and the present. To create something that reflects both continuity and evolution.
The book uses a really beautiful analogy to illustrate that, comparing us to trees with roots firmly planted in the past, but branches reaching towards the future.
That's a powerful
image.
Right, it really is. It captures that balance between honoring where we come from and embracing where we're going. I'm finding this all so fascinating.
Me too.
And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
I'm curious, does the book offer any concrete solutions or pathways forward for people who are dealing with these issues?
You know, it doesn't offer easy answers, and I think that's intentional.
Okay.
Instead of prescribing solutions, it aims to spark dialogue and encourage critical thinking about our roles in shaping a more inclusive and equitable society.
So it's more about prompting self-reflection and challenging us to consider how we can contribute to positive change.
Exactly. And a key theme is the need for empathy and understanding, not just between individuals, but across generations, cultures, ideologies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If we want to create a world where everyone feels heard and valued, we need to be willing to listen and learn from those who are different from us.
Absolutely. Which brings us back to that title, On Their Behalf. It's a plea to act as allies, to advocate for those who feel marginalized.
It's about moving beyond passive listening and engaging in active allyship.
Precisely. Recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world.
I'm really feeling inspired by this conversation. I'm eager to hear more about what the book has to say about personal growth and resilience. Should we dive into that next?
Let's do it. I think you'll find this next section really insightful.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. As we delve deeper into this advocating for others idea, it connects beautifully with the next section.
Yeah.
You know, it delves into how we can all navigate these periods of immense change and emerge stronger on the other side.
It's interesting you say that because I was just thinking how the book doesn't shy away from the fact that change, especially societal change, can be incredibly unsettling. Like it really can feel like the rug is being pulled out from under you.
Oh, absolutely. And the book doesn't try to sugarcoat it.
No.
It acknowledges those feelings of discomfort and uncertainty.
Right.
But it presents a really interesting perspective on resilience.
Okay.
You know, it defines resilience as more than just bouncing back. It's about using those challenging experiences to actually grow and evolve.
I love that. Do you remember how the book phrases it?
There's this one line that I think really captures it.
Yeah.
Resilience is not the absence of stars, but the beauty marks etched by the journey.
Wow, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not about like erasing the struggles, but about letting those experiences shape who you become.
Exactly. And the book suggests that within those periods of disruption, you have this opportunity to really examine your beliefs, shed those old patterns that might be holding you back, and embrace new possibilities that you might not have considered before.
It's almost like change, like forces you to confront yourself the way you might not otherwise do. But the book doesn't make it sound like a solo journey.
You're right. It emphasizes that you don't have to go through those challenges alone.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole section on the importance of mentorship and community in fostering that resilience.
So while you're going through these changes and feeling uncertain, it's crucial to have people you can lean on and learn from.
Exactly.
Right.
The book stresses that, you know, having mentors who can offer guidance and communities where you feel a sense of belonging. It even suggests that even the simple act of sharing your stories, both the struggles and the triumphs, can be incredibly empowering.
It's almost like when you share your story, it takes away some of its power. Because you're not carrying that weight alone anymore.
That's a great way to put it. And that idea of shared experience leads to another point the book raises, the importance of intergenerational dialogue.
I'm really curious about that. What does the book say about connecting across generations?
Well, it argues that both younger and older generations have unique wisdom to offer. The older generation, they've lived through past upheavals and can offer these valuable perspectives, while younger generations bring fresh ideas and approaches to navigating the challenges of today.
So cool. Just bring those different perspectives together. It makes me think of that image of the group of people standing in a circle, hands intertwined. It's like a visual representation of that intergenerational support system.
I see that connection too.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes the power of coming together, of sharing those experiences, and of finding strength in those shared stories.
Okay, so we've talked about change as a catalyst for growth, the importance of resilience, finding support in mentors and communities, even bridging the gap between generations. It's all starting to feel incredibly interconnected.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most insightful things about this book. It highlights how individual growth and societal change are really intertwined. You can't have one without the other.
But it's not just about understanding these concepts, right? The book also seems to be pushing us towards action. What does it say about taking action in the face of all this change?
You're picking up on a crucial element there.
Okay.
It's not enough to simply acknowledge these issues or passively observe the world changing around us. The book argues that we actually have a responsibility to actively shape the future we want to see.
So it's not just about reflecting and understanding, but about actually doing something.
Exactly. But here's the interesting part. The book doesn't necessarily advocate for these grand gestures or sweeping revolutions.
So it's not about trying to single-handedly change the world overnight.
Not at all. It focuses on the power of small, deliberate acts of courage and compassion performed consistently over time.
So it's more about those everyday actions that add up to create meaningful change.
Precisely. Think of it like the ripple effect. Each small action can create waves that extend far beyond ourselves.
That's such a hopeful thought.
Right?
Yeah. So where should we focus those small actions? What does the book suggest?
It encourages us to think about our spheres of influence, our families, our communities, our workplaces, and to consider how we can contribute to creating more inclusive and equitable environments.
Right. So it's about taking ownership of the change we want to see, starting with the people and places we interact with every day.
Exactly. And there's this powerful quote in the book that I think really captures this. The world changes not by the grand pronouncements of leaders, but by the quiet acts of courage of ordinary people.
I love that. It's a reminder that you don't have to have a position of power or a huge platform to make a difference.
And the book suggests that action can take many forms, right? It could be speaking up against injustice, advocating for the marginalized, amplifying unheard voices, or simply choosing to be kind and compassionate in our daily interactions.
It's about being intentional with our choices and recognizing that even the smallest actions can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of ripple effects, do you remember that image of the hand planting a seed?
Oh, yes. That one really speaks to me.
Me too.
It perfectly captures this idea that even in times of upheaval, there's always hope. There's always the potential for growth and change. And it starts with each of us planting those seeds, taking those small actions, nurturing a better future.
I couldn't agree more. It's about recognizing that we're not just passive observers. We are active participants in this unfolding.
Yeah. This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
It has.
I'm starting to see how all these themes of change, resilience, and action are interwoven.
Me too.
And why?
And I think this leads us naturally to the final point the book makes.
Okay.
The importance of individual responsibility in shaping a just and equitable world.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating. Should we dive into that after a quick break?
Let's do it.
As we talk about this idea of individual responsibility, I can't help but think about how overwhelming it can feel sometimes. It's like, how can my small actions really make a difference? When we're talking about these huge societal challenges.
That's a really valid point.
Yeah.
And the book actually addresses that feeling of being overwhelmed head on. It encourages us to kind of shift our perspective a little. Instead of focusing on the enormity of the problem. It suggests we focus on the power we actually do have within our own spheres of influence.
So it's about recognizing that we can't solve every problem.
Right.
But we can still make a difference in our own little corners of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book gives us this really thought-provoking framework for thinking about individual responsibility. It suggests that it's made up of 3 interconnected elements. Awareness, empathy, and action.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down a bit for me.
Yeah.
What does the book have to say about awareness?
Well, it argues that before we can even begin to act responsibly, we have to be aware of the issues. You know, we need to educate ourselves about the challenges facing our communities and the world at large. And it's not just about knowing the facts. It's about understanding the nuances and complexities of these issues.
So it's not just reading headlines. It's really digging deep and engaging with different perspectives to get a fuller picture.
Exactly. And that awareness then leads us to the second element, empathy. The book argues that we need to cultivate empathy for those who are affected by these challenges. We need to be able to see the world through their eyes and understand their experiences, even if those experiences are different from our own.
So putting ourselves in other people's shoes and trying to understand where they're coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a book suggests that empathy, it's not just a feeling, it's an action.
Okay.
It requires us to listen attentively, to ask questions, and to be willing to challenge our own assumptions and biases.
So it's not about feeling bad for someone. It's about actively seeking to understand their perspective.
Precisely. And that then brings us to that final element, action.
Okay.
You know, the book argues that awareness and empathy without action are meaningless. Once we understand the issues and we've developed empathy, we have this responsibility to act.
So what does responsible action look like in this context?
Well, like we talked about earlier, it doesn't have to be this big, grand thing. It can be as simple as speaking up against injustice, volunteering our time, donating to a worthy cause, or simply choosing to be kind and respectful in our everyday interactions.
It's about recognizing that every action, no matter how small, has the potential to make a difference.
Exactly. And the book also emphasizes the importance of collective action. It argues that our individual actions are amplified when we come together as a community. When we work together to create positive change.
It makes me think of that image with the hands joined together. Pushing against a wall. Like visually, it really represents that idea. It does that we can accomplish so much more together than we can alone.
That's a great observation. And it highlights something the book stresses throughout. Individual responsibility isn't about doing everything ourselves. It's about doing what we can in our own spheres of influence and working collaboratively with others to create a better world.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. We've explored so much, from feeling unheard in a world that's changing so rapidly to finding strength and resilience in community and ultimately embracing the power of individual responsibility to shape a better future.
I think what makes a book on their behalf so compelling is that it doesn't just speak to one specific group. It speaks to the human experience as a whole. We all grapple with change. We all yearn to be heard. And we all have the potential to make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this deep dive so impactful, right?
I think so.
It's not just about understanding one perspective. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and our interconnectedness in creating a better future for everyone.
Well said.
And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to take action in your own life.
Me too.
Until next time, remember, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those ripples of change going.
Absolutely.